This is Dragon in a Pot, and I welcome you back to my channel. Today we're releasing our first video of Recipe for a Good Story. Today we're going to be covering giving your characters character, and how to do that without compromising your storytelling method. So the first question when discussing characters is who or what are they? Is it a human bartender standing behind the tavern bar that you're trying to get information out of while trying not to have to buy a drink, or grease his palm with 6 gold coins? Or are you dealing with a dwarf merchant who's constantly trying to haggle down the price of your whatever item you're trying to sell him? Or vice versa. Are you trying to buy something from him? Or are you dealing with a goblin that pops up and starts yammering at you for 30 seconds for no apparent reason, and next thing you know, your coin purse is gone? Or are you dealing with something a little more exotic? Maybe you're dealing with an octopus that randomly squirms up to you while sitting next to a body of water. Or are you dealing with lizard folk in whatever marsh or desert environment you're telling your story in? Or maybe it's just dealing with the random monsters that occur within your world. Figuring out what they are, how, and who they are to your players. Is it someone that's just a one-time interaction, as would be the case with a battle situation? Or is it someone that you're going to be coming into constantly? Is this a merchant that shows up in every third town they visit? Is it the tavern owner of the village that they're settling into and wanting to stay or stick around in? Or in the case of, say, the goblin, is it a creature that seems to be shadowing them for some reason? These can set the information on which to build and hang the rest of your story off of, and how to present the NPC without going into all of the detail when creating their backstory. The next question is, what do they want? This can be incredibly helpful in trying to figure out how to give the character attitude toward one thing or another, or how to give the NPC a reaction to what the NPCs are asked, or what the PCs and players are asking them to do. Is their motivation purely gold and what it can do for them? Is the only way you're going to get any information out of them is to pay them directly? This is something that can be very useful, especially when dealing with, say, a thief or beggar, or even merchants. If their goal in life is 100% the color of your coins in your belt pouch, then that's going to be something that will color the reactions that the NPC gives when the players start talking to them. Or are they after magic, power, information, things that can give them an ambiguous form of control over the environment in some form? This is very common when dealing with clerics, wizards, individuals that deal with the more nebulous idea of power, authority. It also is useful when dealing with lords, because again, this is how they think. What can you do for me? And it's not necessarily the money. Can you do favors? Can you find me something? Can you go get something for me? Can you do something for me that I can't or don't want to do for myself? And how can I be as lazy as possible while doing it, while giving you the least amount of profit on your end, while still making it worthwhile? Or in the case of many monsters and beggars and the lower level PCs, is what can you do to help give them food? Is that purely their motivation? Survival? Can you provide them some sort of nourishment, which would be the purpose for most creatures attacking in the wild? Is these monsters are probably just hungry, especially in the form of insects and simpler minded creatures. Are they attacking simply because you are a potential food source? And does that give the players some form of room to haggle with the creature? Can they offer them food in some form to appease them, possibly befriend them? Or is it simply a matter of putting this thing down because it is going to continue to attack them or other individuals traveling this route? Or maybe that's the whole reason for dealing with creatures in the first place, is have the players been hired to get rid of this creature? And is there a way to solve the problem without damaging the ecosystem and the ecology of the area? Or maybe you find out the ecology has been damaged elsewhere, which is why this creature is out there in the first place. And that flows directly into what is in the way of your NPC's goal. Is it that they're a merchant and they have, or even a beggar, and they have no money? Their goal is a lack of fun, or what is in the way of them being happy is a lack of funds. Is it a group of adventurers? This would be the case for most of your monsters. The adventurers are in the way of them getting their next meal and going home and being happy. Let's say it's your adventurers have a goal. And maybe they need paperwork in order to get that goal accomplished. Or maybe it's vice versa, and your adventurers need paperwork so that the poor office clerk can finish filing the paperwork so that he can go home for the night. And whether he's filling it out for them or he has to send them to another office 2 blocks down to get this signed and this notarized and this stamp applied, the list can go on. Or is there a lack of information? This can be applied to many individuals. Are you dealing with a town guard that he has been told that there are a group of individuals that are causing problems and making a mess, and it happens to match the description of your party of adventurers? He arrests your adventurers, and suddenly they're being taken for a crime they didn't commit. This both gives you an adventure and a reason of what is in the way of this poor guard going home. And is it something that your players can roleplay through? Or is it something that they need to fight their way through and this poor guard never makes it home? And inevitably this leads to, how do you want to present them? First off, I like to describe, what do they look like? How do they come across at first glance? Are they wearing clean but well-worn clothes? That would be the case for a farmer's wife. Or are they wearing clean-ish clothes that a bartender would wear with an apron with a few food splotches that have been washed maybe one too many times, or maybe they're brand relatively new? These can be applied to give your characters an understanding of who they are without going into too much detail. And of course, then you have what paperwork or presentation material do you have for them? Have you drawn a sketch of them? Or are they just a quick off-the-cuff mini that you had on hand that you're repurposing for the task? Do you have any information on your side of the screen telling you who and what they are, besides that they're a tavern owner? Or maybe they're the bartender who is the nephew once removed of the bar owner, or maybe he's just a good friend's son, nephew, brother, whatever the case may be. How do you present them voice-wise? Are you presenting them as quick speaking where you're barely able to make sure of what sentence they said, much less whether or not you understood it in the first place? Kind of like your traditional car salesman, where it's Hi, it's a perfect car. Let's come over here and let's take a look, and we'll get you behind the wheel and we'll have you signed out of here before you realize what's going on. Or is it someone who's a little more methodical and speaks slowly? This may be the case of your big bad evil genius and how he's presented. Is he more of a Moriarty character who's going to think things through before he speaks? And is he plotting every word to have a double meaning that is up to you to interpret? Whether it's straightforward or whether there's 3 different layers of innuendo and hinting on what his true goals may be. Or is it simply a matter of your next fight? Maybe you have a giant spider, for example, and all it cares about is you being its next meal and wrapping you up and taking you home and putting you in its larder for the next week while you simmer in your own juices. These are all things that can adjust how you present and act out your players' next interaction with NPCs. And hopefully this helps give you a little more juicy details to bring your characters to life, whether they are those 2-dimensional NPCs that we love so much that the players, of course, hook onto for no apparent reason whatsoever, and you're stuck with them for the next 3 adventures for no apparent reason other than your PCs just love talking to Farmer Joe for no reason other than he tells interesting stories about carrots that happen to grow like awkward shapes. Or maybe the bartender who knows just a little too much about the local gossip that you really didn't intend for him to be as interesting as he turned out to be. Or whether it is your big bad evil genius and what his plans are and how he presents his minions for your characters to interact with. And I thank you for joining me here today on this episode of Recipe for a Good Story. I would invite you to like and share this video if you've enjoyed it. And of course, I would invite you to subscribe so that you can continue to see my new videos as they come out and are published. And I hope to see you soon on my next video. For the meantime, though, this is Dragon in a Pot, signing off.